Hey, good morning, everybody. And we are live. It's Thursday morning live. And go wake somebody up. Get them here. Remember that we're here every week, Thursday morning, 8:30 Central Time. And I am super excited about this morning. My guest this morning, Brian Bogart, high performance coach, become a good friend of mine. And we're going to talk this morning about life and how we face some of the things coming up in the world economically and what we can do to offset that. So I'm really excited about him being here this morning. Remember, this is about your intentionality. Who are you? What are you showing up to do? Who are you showing up to be? Did you get up this morning, go through your daily disciplines? What are those? Are those exercise, spiritual time? Are they, that time that you spend just basking in gratitude, right? What are you grateful for? Are you starting your day off with a bang that's going to impact somebody else in their life? And that's what I want to encourage you on doing today. So I'm glad that you're here this morning. Listen in. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, StreamYard, YouTube. And if you know somebody who is on one of those platforms or needs to listen in this morning, go get them. Stick a cup of coffee in their hand. Get them here because you're going to be blown away by this morning's show. And remember, it's only 20 minutes. So get here. So we're here every morning. This show is sponsored today by the GOB Network. GOB Network is putting on a huge multifamily event July 13th and 14th here in Chicago. If you know a local area Chicago entrepreneur that should be on this show, let me know. But get to the GOB Network. It's going to be huge. 2 days of networking, some great speakers, some great information and knowledge in the multifamily space. So I'm glad that you're here this morning. Listen, I'm going to bring my guest in, Brian. We're going to get him introduced and tee this thing up this morning. Brian, good morning, man. I'm so glad you're here today, for sure.
What's up, brother, man? I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I just want people to realize that this is 6:30 in the morning on in California time, and so you're up early, but you're up early anyhow. So I'm just going to shout that out.
I am. Just like what you said, man, I get up every single day. I've got a pretty consistent and regular morning routine. I center myself, I center my head, I center my heart, and I just get going because that's the only way I can pour into other people. So I love everything you said. Do you know who you are? Do you know what you want? Do you know who you're doing this for? Do you know who you're going to impact? Because we're all about in our world is the who. So that was a perfect tee up for the day, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So here's the first question I have to ask. And you and I've gotten to know each other over the last few months. Our worlds kind of collided because I had Dave Meltzer on my show, and then you and I connected, and just one thing led to another. Then you met a couple of buddies of mine, Moose, and it's just kind of been a chain reaction, which is kind of cool. But one question I don't think I've ever asked you, and I like to ask all my guests, is in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
It's a great question. I've never been asked that question before. Heart.
Okay, so I'm probably 300 broadcasts in on 3 different shows, right? And I don't think anybody's ever said heart, and I mean that for sure. So dig in. Why heart? What's that mean to you?
About a year ago, some of my close friends and team actually started to call me the heart surgeon without a blade. And I didn't really realize the depth of that statement when I first heard it. But, my story, we may go through portions of it today, but, in 20 minutes, we'll see what we have time for. I've had periods of very strong intellect and mental toughness and mental narratives. And then I've had big periods of time where I've shut off physical pain to just basically survive. And when I shut off physical pain, I also shut off emotional pain, and it was off for almost 30 years. And so much of what we do focuses on human connection, the human experience and everything that we do. And I believe that human connection is really dialed in because the glue that binds human connection is through vulnerability and authenticity. Human connection, though, doesn't exist without emotion. And I didn't feel emotion for a very, very long time. And so now I would tell you that not only have I always had heart because I care and I focus, but now that's the core of so much of the work that we do is really helping people fix and repair their heart and help them connect their head and their heart so that they can actually see themselves more clearly and move faster with less effort.
Love that. So let's, couple minutes of your background, Brian. Let people know where you came from, who you are, and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, so I always have to start. I'm a husband and father first. It is my hands down most important role in this world. And, we've got a lot of businesses and initiatives, but that are all in a collective effort to impact 1 billion lives as quickly as possible. And I say all that to say that all of that impact will go away if my wife and my kids are not good, because that's how important that particular role is to me. I think it's always important. A lot of people know me for a very particular story, and given the time frame we have today, I'm going to hit over it very, very quickly. But when I was 7, I was run over by a truck, and my left arm was completely severed from my body. It was reattached. I had 24 surgeries, years of adversity, years of struggle. And though I know many of your audience listeners probably weren't expecting it to go there today with my context and story, what I've realized is I have a very, very unique story. But in all the time I've been doing this, Mike, I also realized that every single one of us has a unique story. So what's important is that we learn to pause and become aware of the lessons we can extract from those stories, and then become intentional with how do we apply them in our lives. And we all have the ability to do that. And we also all have the ability to tap into the collective wisdom of other people's stories to shorten our own curve to learning. So 2 primary lessons, I'll just hit them quick, and then we'll see where we want to go for the rest of the conversation. But this really drives so much of what I do and who I am at this point in my life. I learned very, very early not to get stuck by the things that have happened to me, but instead get moved by what I can do with them. And what we've realized in all this time is that moved people move people. So much of what I do to fulfill my purpose in life, which is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs, is really about getting people to move, because we've all been stuck. We're all going to be stuck again. It's just not okay to stay there. And movement is one of the biggest core solutions around that. One of the other core philosophies, I didn't realize until later in life, but at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, although I was the one going through surgeries, although I was the one having all these procedures done to me, I was a little bit in a fog, Mike. I was being guided through the process. My parents, however, were not. They were intimately aware of the unceasing medical treatments, years of physical therapy, and the idea of seeing their son grow up without the use of his left arm was a source of great potential suffering for them. So they willed themselves day in and day out to do what was necessary, to do what was tough, to embrace the pains required to ultimately strengthen and heal me. So what they did, whether intentional or not, was they ingrained in me a philosophy and a way of living, which was to embrace pain, to avoid suffering. And I believe when this is done correctly, this is also where we gain freedom.
When we first connected, it was this place where you said some things to me that just moved me from a place where, and I don't want to say stuck, but I was feeling some stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Because you heard my story, and we all have a backstory, and that's exactly what you said. Mm-hmm. And it's those stories that are around other people that move other people and help other people move forward. I think you and I both have met enough people along the way that are stuck. They're stuck in the past of abuse, whether it be physical, emotional, sexual. They're in addiction, whether it be drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, and it goes on, right? And how do we do something different to move people beyond that? So why do you think people get stuck and don't move forward?
Yeah, so there's a lot of answers to that question. There's a lot of depth and context, but I'm going to try to hit this at least in the core direction. I think it's a combination of really a couple of things. One, the world tells us to reduce, eliminate, or avoid pain, right? When we experience trauma, loss, despair, these difficult emotions, the world doesn't really allow us to feel them, because the world tells us to show up, have a smile on, and move fast, because we can't actually have feelings in life and in business, right?
Right.
And think about it. From the time that we're little, think about how often we trip and fall and get hurt, and our parents say, don't cry, right? It's not okay to cry. It's not okay to feel. Like, no, stop whining, stop complaining. When in reality, our emotions are a representation of something that we're experiencing, and we're trying to connect deeper in the world. And so there's this pattern of all these things that were shut off, and we've really lost the art of thinking, and we've lost the art of feeling. Brene Brown outlined in one of her books that the 1945 field book for the Army used to have over 140 references to the human experience, emotions, trauma, the ways that we process. Today's field book, 0. Situational leadership, strategic leadership, tactical leadership. It's as if we've all of a sudden become machines and not people. So not only have we lost the ability to think and feel, but we've actually lost the ability to think beyond that. So I'm in this big perspective where I don't think we just need to learn how to think and feel. We need to learn to think about our thinking, think about our feeling, feel our thinking, and feel our feeling. It's in that quadrant that success lives. And so part of this is this proclivity and tendency for us to lean into the world narrative of reducing pain. The other side of it is I think most people don't really understand the things that actually keep us stuck, Mike. You know, most businesses, most entrepreneurs, and most people in general believe that they're stuck because they have the wrong strategy and tactics in their life. If I just go learn how to sell better, if I buy that 7-step system to teach me more processes and strategy and tactics, if I, can hire somebody to help me get there, if I make this amount of money, then I'll be free. If I can get this kind of job or this kind of house or this kind of car, all of a sudden I'll feel okay about myself, right? Or if I go into this one program, it's going to give me everything I need to leverage and scale my business. But what most people don't actually pay attention to is that the strategy and tactics, though they're critically important because strategy and tactics allow us to leverage and scale our lives and our businesses effectively. They are important. I never will minimize them, but they are not the things that keep us stuck. They're the things that help us amplify and scale. The things that keep us stuck, Mike, are a combination of our emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning. And it's these three things, primarily the tip of the spear being emotional triggers, that keep us stuck repeating the same patterns in our life, feeling as if we don't ever have influence or control, or like life is fate and we can't actually influence our destiny. And so many of these things are what we focus on.
So this conversation is a much higher level than the average person has, right? So the average person just goes, I'm stuck. I can't, I don't know what's going on for me. I don't know how to get there. Maslow said hundreds of years ago, right, that food, shelter, clothing were really important, but as far as the human needs, and we have taken just the need of that to beyond that, right?
That's right.
So it goes beyond just, hey, I need this to survive or get by or feel comfortable, to I need this to be able to feel like I matter or am something to people in the world.
That's right.
And so, that's where people get stuck. Here's what I want to say is, if there's anybody out there that has a comment, drop a comment in the box this morning. If you have a question for Brian, drop a question in the box. Let's get that answered this morning. I know, that you have to be out there right now thinking that something's going on. Let's see what you're thinking and how we might be able to walk through some of that. Here's what's kind of cool. You and I really met when we met in the first call. I'll never forget this. And let's see if you remember this. The first call was a real human connection.
It was.
I dropped an F-bomb and you went, sat back in your chair. And then I said, hey, great ink. And you said, oh my God, we're going to get along so well because those two things, right? And it was just human connection. And I think, you kind of alluded to this, but so many people want to, that old keep up with the Joneses thing, right? How do we do better, do more, get more, gain more, drive the fancy car, fly private, have the big boat, live in the top of the penthouse. And really in the end, what does it matter more than just the human connection of that heartfelt connection with a friend, a good relationship, a wife, a husband, a spouse, a child,
You're exactly right, Mike. And so here's the thing. What I want to be really clear on is, just like strategy and tactics, I never vilify money, success, or material things. So I do want to give clarity around that, because here's the difference, though. I was conditioned, so are so many of us, to chase all the what's of the world. What house, what car, what amount of money, what amount of success. And I got it all. Everything I ever accomplished and wanted, I had by the time I was 27. But you know what it cost me? Who I was. I lost who I was because I started chasing what before I was clear and centered in who I was. And so when I woke up at 27, in circles with people making multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures in many cases, looking around and realizing how many of us were actually experiencing the same thing. We were isolated, alone, not feeling worthy, not actually connected to the deepest level. And all of a sudden, it caused me to take a step back and realize that I needed to shed the layers of what the world had put on me and heal the layers of pain that I hadn't addressed up until that point. Once I got centered in who I was, which I'm very, very clear on now I can live from a position of who I am, and all the what's in my world are a manifestation of who I am, not the other way around. And it's a very, very important thing, because you're right. We do seek human connection. I think that we're all hardwired to seek and desire 4 things, Mike. We all seek and desire to feel safe. We all seek and desire to feel protected. Those are not the same thing. We all seek and desire to feel seen and understood. And we all seek and desire to feel connected. Oh, by the way, the last two, seen, understood, and connected, are the things that we desire the most. But they don't happen unless the first two do. So part of the reason that we also, to your last question, get stuck is because what happens when we don't feel safe, we protect ourselves. Our armor goes up. When our armor goes up, what we're doing is we're actually preventing the very thing we want and desire the most, which is to be seen and understood and connected. Because if we have this invisible force field of armor around us to protect ourselves so that we can convince ourselves that we're safe, how can we properly demonstrate who we are to the world through that invisible force field? And how can we expect anybody on the other side of that invisible force field to see and understand us and connect with us through an invisible force field? We can't. So what we're doing is we're literally separating ourselves and further isolating ourselves down this path, which, oh, by the way, only further allows us to not feel and heal. There's two other things that armor does, though, Mike. If I gave you 2 5-pound dumbbells and I told you to stick them out in front of you, how long could you hold them there?
Well, I'm kind of a little different than other people. I probably would hold them there 4 or 5 minutes.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But what would happen? Call it 30 seconds in. You'd feel it, right?
Oh, yeah. You'd feel it.
A minute in, is it going to get heavier?
All of a sudden, gravity's going to kick in.
By 5 minutes, you might be stubborn as hell, and you're going to be sitting there holding them out there because you are different than other people, and you're going to stay committed to that. But guess what? They get heavier the longer you hold them. Our armor is no different, Mike.
Yeah.
The longer we hold it, the heavier it gets, and it starts to incrementally crush us. The last thing that armor does, and this is really, really important. I have to close with this because it's very strong. Not only does it prevent us from being seen, understood, and connecting, not only does it get heavier the longer we carry it and start incrementally crushing us, but let's just imagine we have a container. Now, some of us who aren't or some of us who are very, very tightly controlled in different periods of life used to have a lid on this container, but many people don't. But let's just assume there's this container, this invisible force field. It's like a trash can. When you don't want to take that the bag out to the dumpster, what do? You shove it down. What are we taught to do in the world? Shove our feelings down, shove our experiences down, shove our traumas down, shove our truths down. All of a sudden, this container starts piling up, and it only can hold so much. So if we don't have a lid on it, it starts spilling over into our lives and impacting other people. But for those of us that were really tightly controlled, there's a lid on there. We can't let anybody see or feel. Nothing can spill over. So what happens? We keep shoving it down. The pressure builds. That container explodes, creating damage in our life because we thought we were protecting ourselves, but what we've actually done is isolated everything. So what I'm suggesting is, as leaders and as people, if we can convince ourselves that we are safe, we can lower our armor, and we can wrap a realm of protection around the environments that we enter into, then we can influence that so that everybody can feel safe, everybody can still feel protected, everybody can feel seen and understood, and everybody can feel connected.
So, speaking of connection, here's a listener listening in this morning. Can you see that in the comments?
Let me minimize my screen so I can.
He said, I'm so glad I jumped on this podcast this morning. The content is a topic I totally agree with, especially environmental influence as well as social conditioning. Great discussion. Thanks, Marcus. Yeah. Marcus is an interesting guy. I've known Marcus for a number of years, and he is, he believes all this as we do, And I think, that's a great question too. I mean, you talked about some really important things, and the first thing that came to mind was security, right? Is that safety, that security to know that you're okay. But how much of it is a choice? How much of a choice do you have to make to walk in that direction? Because, the difference between someone who, I want to say someone who's homeless, lives under a bridge, to somebody who is, a little bit more successful, sometimes it's not that big of a line.
Sometimes it's not that big of a line. And, I think it's really interesting because I think so many people are in a position where they feel like victims, they feel like fate, or like life is fate, like they have no influence or control over their destinies. And I think that one of the greatest differences in that line is a single word: awareness. Reality is our minds process 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40, Mike. What that says is that we are largely living in the unconscious. So until we go through a systematic process of moving the unconscious to the conscious, the unaware to the aware, it's going to feel like we have no influence or control. It's going to feel like life has destiny. But when we start to actually bring those places into a place of awareness, now all of a sudden we can be intentional with how we choose to live our lives. How do we actually move through these emotions that keep us stuck? How do we actually put ourselves in a position to embrace the pains required so that we can do the things that we need? And then there's also a really important and powerful perspective shift, because I believe that pain and perspective both point us at what is as important. But we can choose to view these things happening to us, or we can view them as something happening for us. You see, the reality of it is every time that I get pain, every time I seek perspective, all it does is it allows me to see the world a little bit more clearly and start to recognize that I'm just a part of the process, and I can only control so much, but I can control mostly what I'm doing. The outside world is what most people try to control. All I know I can is myself.
Yeah. You said an interesting word, education. How much of this is education? Where do people get it from? Where, how do they even know that this exists, that there's a different way out there?
Well, I think part of that's going to have to exist with just more and more momentum in the right direction, with more narratives and more people choosing to own their truth to give others permission to live theirs. I think we've lived in an environment where the narratives have been very, very strong. I talked to you about what's that we chased and all these things. And I'm a big believer that we've been in an era of what and an era of profit. If you look in business and in life, like particularly in the Western hemisphere, like we have been in an era where that's what been our two primary focuses. How do we generate more profit and how do we get more what's? We've lost sight of the two most important elements, which to me are the who and the people. So two of our core philosophies are who before what and people before profits. And so what we are in the process of doing, in fact, we're running a challenge this week right now that's called the era of you. We are in the process right now of trying to officially end the era of what, usher in the era of who, which begins with the era of you. This is how we can start to really become full circle and start connecting not only with who we are at the most core level of ourselves, but oh, by the way, our deepest level of connection with our most authentic selves is also the only way that we effectively connect externally with other people. So you talk about education. It's about education can be formal, it can be informal, it can be in environments, it can be just around the experiences of the people that you have. And so if you are not living the life that you want to be living, if you feel like you are not aligned and identifying with a light shining through you, knowing that you're getting up every day, feeling like you're doing the things that you want to be doing, the first place I would challenge you is to change your environment. Who are the people that you are around? What are the things that you're actually experiencing? Because here's the deal. The unavoidable precursor to change is acceptance. So until you accept the current state of things, you cannot alter them. No matter what level of education there is, until you understand where you are today, who you are today, and who you're becoming, you can't start to develop the path to actually walk.
So Brian, if people want to get involved in this challenge, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, we have 2 days left. We're going to be going live actually in 2 more hours today. Go to eraofyouchallenge.com. It's an $8 challenge, and 100% of the proceeds are going to a nonprofit because we believe in collective impact. So we're here to pour into you for the week. But all of your funds, efforts, and resource are not only giving a collective impact to the individuals that are in it to benefit and grow together, but also all the funds that were generated from it, we're donating completely to charity because that's what we believe in. And oh, by the way, it's going to an organization, to Maslow's organization. It's going to St. Vincent de Paul, and their 4 tenets are feed, clothe, house, and heal. They're focusing on the basic elements of what we need to survive.
That's funny that we didn't even have 2 seconds on before we went live this morning, so that wasn't even teed up. That's good. Brian, any books, any training, anything that you want people to say, hey, this makes sense to reach out to Brian about?
Yeah, so I'm going to say just a book. I always have to mention this one because I'm a big believer in it. There's 2 actually. Mindset by Carol Dweck is one of my favorite. Page 157. Make sure you visit there. There's a lot of language that will really help people understand how we identify with fixed versus growth mindset. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I like to promote these 2 because these are both 2 really, really profound books. Here's the reality, Mike. For us to impact 1 billion lives, we know that 99.999999999% will never pay us $1. And we're very, very okay with that because we know those that choose to invest in themselves will substantiate all the resources needed to perpetuate the impact that we want. So one of the things that we have is a free course. It's over 30 minutes of video content, the very first chapter of our entire course, so that you get to begin with the end in mind, understand some of the core concepts. If you go to nolimitsprelude.com, you can access it there. Here's the catch, and I always say this point blank. Yes, you exchange an email to be able to get access to the course. Yes, you get communication and emails through you completing the course. And yes, at the end of it, you'll get 4 emails outlining opportunities to go deeper should you choose to invest beyond. But I want to be very, very clear. This is not to get you on a list to spam you in perpetuity. This is to elevate and empower you and help move you so that you can go move more people and be a part of our collective impact.
So, it's really interesting. I just finished listening on audio this morning to Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence
Yeah.
People. And it's probably, I probably listen to that maybe once a year, maybe even twice a
classic,
year.
man. Yeah.
It is. It's old school, right? And but the fundamentals. And at the end of the book, he says that until we move people, nothing else in our life moves.
The truth.
And it was like, man, I just listened to that for a minute and just thought, that's just, that's the way of the world and what we should do. And I think that that's something that both of you and I both have as a passion in our life, is to move people through our stories, through what's happened in our life, and how we can make that human connection. Brian, tell people how to connect with you.
Yeah, so you can go find us at brianbogert.com. If you're on social media, at BogertBrian. You've got the text line that you can text us in. I did want to make one correction. You have my email in there. You've got it as Brian Bogart. It's Brian Bogert with an E. Oh. So it's Brian at brianbogert.com. And we are here truly to determine if and how we can help anybody that we can impact.
This is why I have an assistant, because my spelling is not that good.
It's all right, bro. It's okay. The good thing is you've got a solid heart, so that's what I care about. I don't really care so much about your spelling ability.
Right. Hey, I'm gonna move you to the green room for a minute. You hang out with me for a minute while I say goodbye.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Hey, everybody. Thank you. What a great morning. What a great show. I'm so glad that you were here this morning. The comments, Marcus, thanks for being here. Listen, tell somebody we're here every Thursday morning. We bring some great content. I mean, the things Brian shared this morning, just the life journey and the lessons, and just really digging in about people's heart and what we need. And we started this whole session show this morning with asking Brian what the one word was for him, and he said heart, and look where it went. So I'm glad that you were here. I'm glad that you got what you needed to get this morning. Go start your day off. Be intentional now about your day. I talked about that when we started the show this morning. What's your intentionality? What had you planned out for today? How many sales calls? How many door knocking calls are you going to make? How many contracts will you sign today? Who will you touch today? How will you make a difference in somebody's life today? But be intentional about it. Hey, everybody, glad that you're here. If I can do anything for you, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me at mike@mycoreintentions.com. As a direct email. If you want to network, you have questions, anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. And we will see you next week. If you need anything in between, on Saturday, we do a show called Multifamily Unplugged, and that's at 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you are in the multifamily space and you're looking for some guidance around that, that's where you can find us on